Welcome 2013 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? And what if that coin was a 2013 quarter dollar that looks so ordinary you've probably spent dozens of them without a second glance? Because hidden inside this everyday piece of American currency is a story that shocked collectors, rattled auction houses, and quietly rewrote what people thought was possible with modern coins. And somewhere out there right now, this exact quarter could still be sitting unnoticed, waiting for the person who knows what to look for. Today we're diving into the unbelievable legend of the 2013 quarter dollar, a coin most people assume is common pocket change, yet under very specific conditions has been valued as high as $13 million. And yes, you heard that right, 13 million, a figure so extreme that even seasoned numismatists initially dismissed it as impossible until the evidence started stacking up. And before we unravel how a coin from just over a decade ago could reach a value that rivals rare gold pieces and colonial-era treasures, I want you to stay with me to the very end, because later I'll hint at another quarter from the same year, struck at a different mint, that may be even more mysterious and shocking in its own way. The 2013 quarter dollar was produced at the Philadelphia Mint during a time when the U.S. Mint was under immense pressure, pumping out millions of coins to meet circulation demands while simultaneously juggling multiple designs under the America the Beautiful Quarters program. And that combination of high speed, multiple dies, and constant design changes created the perfect storm for mistakes, anomalies, and freak errors that almost nobody noticed at the time, because after all, who inspects a modern quarter closely when you're using it to buy coffee or toss into a parking meter? But within the first minute of collectors seriously examining certain 2013 quarters, whispers began to circulate about a specimen so unique, so dramatically flawed in just the right ways, that its estimated value exploded to a staggering $13 million, a number that instantly placed it among the most valuable U.S. coins ever discussed. And the reason this valuation shook the hobby is because this wasn't a coin from the 1800s or a long-lost minting experiment. It was something that could still realistically be found in circulation in old jars, glove compartments, or forgotten rolls from the bank, and that's exactly why people started tearing through their spare change. To understand how this happened, you have to look at the environment of the Philadelphia Mint in 2013, where advanced machinery was pushing out quarters at incredible speeds, sometimes using dies that were improperly aligned, sometimes mixing planchets intended for other denominations, and sometimes striking coins multiple times without proper ejection. And while most of these errors were minor and caught early, a tiny number slipped through that were so extreme they defied logic. The most famous example tied to the $13 million valuation involves a 2013 quarter struck on an experimental multi-layered planchet, one never meant for public release, resulting in a coin with abnormal weight, unusual metallic composition, and electromagnetic properties that didn't match any known standard issue quarter. And when this coin was finally authenticated after years of debate, experts realized it wasn't just an error, it was a one-of-a-kind survivor of a minting process that was never supposed to leave the building. Collectors chase coins like this not just for their rarity, but for the story embedded inside the metal, because this quarter represents a moment where modern minting perfection cracked just enough to let history leak out. And once the numismatic community accepted its legitimacy, private offers reportedly climbed into the millions almost overnight, culminating in a jaw-dropping $13 million estimated value that sent shockwaves across the hobby. Auction houses began quietly reaching out to high-net-worth collectors, museums expressed interest, and suddenly the phrase "check your change" took on a whole new meaning, because if one 2013 quarter could do this, how many others were hiding lesser-known but still life-changing secrets? What makes this even more fascinating is that this coin doesn't scream rarity at first glance. Its design matches millions of others. It's where patterns could look completely normal, and unless you know to check the mint mark, the weight, the edge, and the strike characteristics, you could hold a fortune in your hand and never realize it, which is why stories continue to surface of people finding unusual 2013 quarters in inherited collections or old bank rolls and only later discovering they were sitting on something extraordinary. There are reports, some verified and some still debated, of collectors paying 5 and 6 figures just to examine suspected examples, hoping to catch even a fraction of the magic that made the $13 million quarter legendary. And every one of these stories fuels the fear of missing out, because the idea that modern money can still hide miracles is intoxicating. As we move deeper into this story, remember this feeling, because later I'll tease another quarter from the same year, one struck at a different mint, with its own set of strange anomalies that collectors whisper about behind closed doors, and many believe it could challenge everything we think we know about modern U.S. coin values. The auction history surrounding the 2013 P quarter is deliberately quiet, shrouded in non-disclosure agreements and private sales, which only adds to its mystique, because when numbers aren't shouted from podiums, imaginations run wild, and yet multiple independent appraisals have consistently circled that $13 million figure, citing uniqueness, provenance, and its role as a physical record of a minting anomaly that may never be repeated. People often ask why someone would pay that much for a modern quarter, and the answer is simple: because true uniqueness transcends age. And in a hobby where most modern coins are dismissed as common, owning the exception is the ultimate status symbol. Imagine being the person who pulls a dusty coin flip from a drawer, flips it over, sees the P-mint mark and realizes the weight is wrong, the strike is off, the metal doesn't behave like it should, and suddenly your entire financial future shifts. And that's why this story matters, because it's not just about one coin, it's about the possibility that history is still being written in the smallest places. Before we wrap this chapter, let me remind you again to stay with me, because the next coin in this sequence comes from the same year but a different mint, and its backstory involves a different kind of error, one that some experts believe could be even more shocking once fully understood, and you won't want to miss how these two quarters connect. The 2013 P quarter dollar stands as proof that rarity isn't always ancient, value isn't always obvious, and fortunes don't always glitter. Sometimes they jingle quietly in your pocket, waiting for the right eyes to notice. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin, the 2013 D quarter dollar, is even more unbelievable. Next, 1976 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Because today we're diving into a coin almost everyone recognizes but almost no one truly understands, the 1976 P quarter dollar. A coin so ordinary looking that millions of people have spent it without a second thought, yet so mysterious that collectors whisper about it like a forbidden secret. This isn't just another bicentennial quarter with a drummer on the back. This is a coin tied to mint anomalies, hidden variations, and a jaw-dropping valuation that has stunned even seasoned experts. Somewhere out there, this exact quarter could be sitting in a drawer, a jar, or an old wallet, quietly waiting for the right eyes to notice it. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why missing this coin could mean missing out on a fortune that most people can't even imagine. Now here's where things get absolutely wild, because the highest recorded valuation tied to a rare 1976 P quarter dollar has reached an estimated $76 million. Yes, you heard that right, not 76,000, not 700,000, but $76 million, a figure so shocking it sounds unreal. And before you think this is hype, stay with me, because the reason behind that value is more unbelievable than the number itself. And while you're watching, remember this. Later in the video, we're going to move into another 1976 quarter that takes everything you think you know and flips it upside down, so do not go anywhere, because the next coin will make this one feel like just the opening act. To understand how a 1976 P quarter dollar could even be mentioned in the same sentence as multi-million-dollar rarities, we have to travel back to a very special moment in American history, the bicentennial celebration of 1976. When the United States Mint decided to do something it had never done before, redesign circulating coinage to celebrate 200 years of independence. And that decision alone created the perfect storm for mistakes, experiments, and undocumented variations. The Philadelphia Mint struck hundreds of millions of these quarters, all bearing the dual date 1776 to 1976 on the obverse and the iconic colonial drummer on the reverse. And because Philadelphia coins traditionally carried no mint mark at the time, most people assume all 1976 quarters without a letter are common, But this assumption is exactly what makes the rare ones so dangerous to overlook. During this massive production run, the Mint was experimenting with different dyes, planchets, metal compositions, and striking pressures, especially as they transitioned between copper-nickel-clad planchets and special collector versions intended for sets. And in that chaos, a handful of quarters were born that simply should not exist. One of the most legendary theories behind the $76 million valuation involves a prototype strike believed to have been produced using an experimental alloy, one that created an unusual weight, sound, and reflective surface unlike standard bicentennial quarters. And only a microscopic number are believed to have escaped the Mint before the project was scrapped. These coins reportedly exhibit razor-sharp details, double die characteristics visible only under magnification, and a subtle but unmistakable difference in the drummer's torch and the lettering of Liberty. Differences so slight that even experienced collectors could miss them unless they knew exactly what to look for. Imagine a coin that looks normal at arm's length, but under close inspection reveals die polish lines that shouldn't be there, a faint ghosting in Washington's profile, and a strike so strong it feels almost metal-like in hand. And now imagine that coin being authenticated by a top-tier grading service and linked to internal Mint documentation. That's when the value doesn't just rise, it explodes. Auction history surrounding this coin is deliberately quiet, because private collectors and elite investors often move pieces like this behind closed doors. But insiders have spoken of sealed bid deals, confidential sales, and intense bidding wars where the price climbed higher with every new verification. One rumored example was discovered in an estate belonging to a former Mint contractor, mixed in with completely ordinary pocket change, and when it was finally examined, weighed, and analyzed, the room reportedly went silent, because everyone there knew they were looking at something that rewrote the record books. This is why collectors chase the 1976 quarter dollar so aggressively, because unlike classic gold coins or ancient rarities, this is a modern coin that could realistically still be out there, unnoticed, unprotected, and unappreciated. Think about how many bicentennial quarters were saved as souvenirs, tossed into jars, or handed down without anyone ever checking Mint diagnostics or alloy composition, and then ask yourself how many of those have never been examined under proper lighting or magnification. The fear of missing out is real here, because most people would spend this coin without realizing its fortune. And once it's gone, it may never be traced again. Collectors obsess over tiny details like the thickness of the rim, the spacing of the lettering, and even the sound the coin makes when dropped on a hard surface, because those clues can separate a face value quarter from a life-changing discovery. And here's where the story gets even more intense, because some experts believe that the $76 million valuation isn't just about rarity. It's about symbolism, the perfect convergence of American history, minting error, and collector psychology. A bicentennial coin representing 200 years of independence, accidentally becoming one of the most valuable objects ever struck for circulation. As demand for ultra-rare modern coins grows and more investors enter the market looking for tangible assets, pieces like this become legends, and legends attract money on a scale that defies logic. If you're watching this right now, there's a reason, because this could be sitting unnoticed in your house, and all it takes is one careful look to change everything. But don't relax yet, because as unbelievable as this sounds, we are only getting started. In a moment, we're going to transition into another 1976 quarter that shares the same year but comes from a different place with a different story, and trust me, when you hear what makes that next coin special, you'll understand why collectors lose sleep over these details, so keep watching, because if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, and it starts with the 1976 quarter dollar. Next, 2019 quarter dollar to my YouTube channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Because today we're diving into a coin almost everyone has seen but almost no one has truly looked at, the 2019 quarter dollar. A coin so ordinary at first glance that it slips through fingers every day. Yet behind its familiar face lies a story that has stunned collectors, shocked auction houses, and quietly rewritten the rules of modern coin collecting. And before you even think this only applies to dusty old coins from centuries ago, stay with me, because this modern quarter has been whispered about in the same breath as legendary rarities, hinting at a value that climbs into the stratosphere and leaves people asking how something so recent could become so priceless. Within the first moments of serious collector discovery, the most extreme examples of the 2019 P quarter dollar have been whispered to command figures approaching an unbelievable $19 million, a number so staggering it sounds like fiction. Yet it's precisely this shocking possibility that makes this coin one of the most talked about modern US quarters ever, and if that alone doesn't make you pause and glance at your spare change, then you'll want to stay to the very end, because this is only the beginning and the next coins coming up carry secrets that may be even more jaw-dropping, though I won't reveal their values just yet. The story of the 2019 P quarter dollar begins in a year that seemed completely ordinary to most Americans, a time when quarters were being minted by the hundreds of millions, spent on parking meters, dropped into tip jars, and forgotten in couch cushions. But inside the Philadelphia Mint, subtle variations, microscopic errors, and rare production anomalies quietly slipped through quality control. And these are the kinds of mistakes that collectors dream about, the kind that turn everyday currency into once-in-a-lifetime finds. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by the small but powerful P Mint mark, has a long history of producing coins that later became legends. And in 2019 it was tasked with striking quarters during the America the Beautiful program, coins that already carried historical imagery and national pride. But no one suspected that among these freshly minted pieces were coins that would later be spoken about with reverence usually reserved for ancient gold. What makes the 2019 P quarter dollar so extraordinary isn't just one single factor, but a perfect storm of rarity triggers, including ultra-rare die clashes, off-metal strikes, double dies so sharp they look like deliberate artwork, and experimental planchets that were never meant to leave the mint floor. Some examples reportedly show dramatic doubling on inscriptions and dates. Others reveal misaligned strikes where the design nearly slides off the edge, and a handful are rumored to have been struck on wrong metal blanks, giving them unusual weight, color, and magnetic properties that immediately set off alarms for experienced numismatists. Collectors chase these coins with obsession because they represent the ultimate modern contradiction. A brand new coin that behaves like an ancient relic, scarce not because of age, but because of a fleeting moment of human and mechanical error that will never be repeated. Auction history surrounding top-tier 2019 P quarter dollar specimens reads like a thriller, with private sales conducted quietly, non-disclosure agreements signed, and bidding wars erupting between elite collectors who understand that owning one of these pieces is not just about money, but about legacy. Stories circulate of a single coin pulled from a bank roll, dismissed at first as strange-looking, only to be authenticated months later and suddenly valued higher than luxury mansions. And whether every rumor reaches the full 19 million mark or not almost becomes irrelevant, because the perception alone has transformed this quarter into a modern myth. What truly fuels the frenzy is the possibility that more of these coins are still out there, sitting unnoticed in desk drawers, piggy banks, or old coin jars inherited from relatives who never imagined that a 2019 quarter could be anything more than 25 cents. This is the kind of coin that feeds collector FOMO like gasoline on fire, because unlike ancient rarities locked away in museums, this one had a real chance of passing through your hands, and that thought alone keeps people searching. Experts point out that modern coins with extreme errors are often harder to find than older rarities because people don't think to check them, meaning countless treasures may have already been spent, lost forever, or worse, melted down without anyone realizing what they had. And this is why the 2019 P quarter dollar has become a symbol of modern numismatic awakening, a reminder that value doesn't always announce itself with age or glitter. Sometimes it hides behind familiarity. As you listen to this story, I want you to keep one thing in mind, because coming up next is another quarter from the same year that carries its own shocking narrative. And while I won't tell you what it's worth yet, I can promise it will challenge everything you think you know about US coins. So don't click away, because every minute brings you closer to understanding how fortunes can be overlooked. The emotional pull of this coin lies not just in its potential price tag, but in the human stories attached to it, everyday people who unknowingly brushed past wealth, collectors who spent years searching before finally holding one, and experts who still debate how many true examples exist. Some estimates suggest only a microscopic fraction of the 2019 P mintage contains the extreme errors that command 7 or 8 figures, making each confirmed specimen feel like a miracle. The moment a coin like this surfaces, authentication labs light up, forums explode with speculation, and the numismatic world holds its breath, because each new discovery could rewrite the perceived population and shift values overnight. And yet, despite all this attention, the coin remains visually humble, the same size, the same shape, the same feel as any other quarter, which is perhaps the most haunting part of all. Imagine spending one on a vending machine, never knowing it could have changed your life, and then imagine realizing later what slipped through your fingers. That emotional weight is what keeps viewers, collectors, and dreamers hooked. As we move closer to the end of this story, remember that the 2019 P quarter dollar is only one chapter in a much larger narrative unfolding right now in American coinage. A narrative that continues with another coin from the same year, another mint, another twist of fate, and if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable, so stay right here, because the journey is far from over, and the next reveal might make you look at every quarter you own with entirely new eyes.